Big thanks to telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria. Their website is mrvickies.co.uk. If you want to contact the guys, email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Big thanks to New Workwear. They are an agile and dedicated workwear provider launched in 2018. For more information, go to the website newworkwear.com. Big thanks, as always, to Media Arts for the help with the video side of things. If you want to support the channel, hit the subscribe button, become a subscriber today. Hit the thumb up under the video, which likes the video, and click share to share to your other social media. Click join if you want to become a member of the channel for as little as $1.99, or take a one-off payment for the cult membership. You can get in via this QR code if you've got a smartphone, or look for membership pack on the website, NUFCmatters.com. What do you get for your one-off £25 payment? You get a scarf, a pen, and a cup, and a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw. Don't forget, if you want a car sticker, all you need to do is subscribe to the show and then email John at NUFC Matters, and he will post you a free car sticker out. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. And we also support the food bank on this channel. NUFCfansfoodbank.co.uk is the virtual matchday bucket where you can make a virtual donation 365 days of the year. The new Alan Shearer raffle is underway. 150 tickets at £1 a ticket. You could win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball from the 260 dinner. Enter now at NUFCmatters.com. We've got a few events coming up. August the 5th sees Gavin Peacock at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £10, and you can get them now from NUFCmatters.com. Our Christmas event takes place on the 7th of December at the Tyneside Irish Centre, and that's an evening with Frank Clark. Tickets are £15 and available from NUFCmatters.com. Finally, Waddle, Keegan, Beardsley and Friends, the class of 84, is on at the Town Theatre and Opera House on Westgate Road in Newcastle on Thursday, January the 23rd. Tickets are now available from the Town Theatre and Opera House.co.uk or telephone 0844 2491 000. That's the box office telephone number 0844 2491
attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true.
Good evening. Welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is the transfer show with Liam Kennedy from Newcastle World and the Shields Gazette. Good evening, Liam.
Evening. Have you noticed my little change, Steve?
Your little change? Ah, right. Okay. Yes, I can see it. It's coming on.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing with it. Like, I just
like an editorial decision.
No, I actually think I'm having a bit of a mid-30s crisis.
Oh my God, mid-30s.
It was my birthday at the weekend.
Yes, many happy returns from us and all the viewers.
Yeah, thanks. I decided as a present to myself, I'd make myself look like a complete tit.
Well, honestly, mate, it's the time to do it. Definitely the time to do it.
I was even considering, I've been toying with it. I'm going for my haircut. I do look a clip at the minute, by the way. But as Steve will know, I spent the 3 or 4 of the minutes that were 10 minutes late trying to sort my barn out, which was just impossible. But I was even considering maybe getting a little mullet cut in. What do you think of that? Everyone
I think
getting
it's a great idea.
Let us know what you think of that. Like,
people think you're doing Movember early, so why not? Getting some practice in for Movember. That's what it is. But
yeah,
hey,
something like that.
Be original, mate. Be original. And let's talk transfers, mate. As always, plenty of questions. They're flying in already. Over 200 watching live. Thank you very much. Never take it for granted. Tom says, question for Liam. With Madison looking like he's going to Spurs, do you think we will now go for Dominic Szoboszlai? And what's the latest on Tino Livramento's potential move to Newcastle?
Okay, so, all right. Start with the Livramento stuff. It's not a criticism of the story itself, because it's absolutely sound, the bits of it. More maybe have a little bit. Look, in at Newcastle World and the Shields Gazette, we can play fast and loose with some of our headlines and do go a little bit baity from time to time. Look, it's part of the game. The only thing I had a little bit of a problem with the Livramento stuff was the headlining of it. I'm going to be brutally honest with you on that. You cannot be closing in on a deal if you value a player at 12 million and somebody values them more than double that, much more than double that, and they value at 30. You can't. That to me isn't closing in. Do you think that's maybe a bit pedantic, Steve? But
no, I think you're right. Headline writers can be a little bit mischievous, I guess. I don't know whether it's the same setup these days. You can tell me more than I know. But back in the day when there was vast amounts of people working at newspapers, your headline maker could make or break a story. And
it still does, Steve. It's just to a different audience now. Yeah, it really does. It can be often written by the writer, sometimes written by other people. We don't have the levels of staff that everyone used to have in the great old days, but we do have a fair bit of expertise. It's a totally different kind of headlining, and I get that it's a subscription model at the Telegraph, so maybe there was a little bit of thought process behind it that it got a lot of people clicking through to that paywall, didn't it? Really, airplane mode got everyone looking and sort of having a look at the headline itself and probably just running wild with it. It's one of those that, look, he's a quality footballer. Let's not get away from it. Been out for a long time. I don't know if many people on here may remember, may not. I'm pretty sure it was the 2s each game when Steve Bruce was the manager and Alan St. Maximin scored right at the end, and we looked to have won a game where we'd been absolutely battered in it. And then Jamal Lascelles chopped down Adam Armstrong at the other end and it ended up 2s each. I don't know if everyone remembers that one. But Tino Livramento in that game was absolutely outstanding. He literally ran our whole left-hand side. They didn't know what day it was. So he's a quality footballer who's played a lot of games in the top division. He played 30-odd, but had a big injury. I think he's young enough to come back from that, but he's excellent. He would be an excellent addition because although he's only 32 now, Kieran Trippier is 34 next year. It's not a million miles away that you're going to start to think like incredible player, but we'll probably have to have a sort of succession plan here, somebody to come in beyond him. Livramento would definitely tick that box. What was the other one? The other one, Steve?
Madison obviously going to Spurs, looking likely now with the Sky ticker tape reporting that today. And obviously Dominic Szoboszlai is now looking as if that could be the main target for Newcastle if you believe some of these ITK accounts on Twitter.
Yeah. So Madison is. Madison was always, and everyone knows I've said that on here continuously, Madison's preference was to go to Tottenham Hotspur. The big problem was whether Tottenham Hotspur put the money down to pay for James Maddison. It was never going to be a problem that Newcastle had an extra problem on top of what Tottenham have. And I'll explain that in a second. So it was never really going to be an issue about Leicester coming down. They were always going to come down. They were never going to get that money. They were just, it was like they were just stamping their authority or certainly attempting to. Early doors in the window was never going to happen. I mean, you might get up towards those numbers with add-ons and things like that, but it's not going to be anywhere near your 60 that people talk about. Newcastle had two problems, and one of them which Tottenham don't have. The same problem that they both have was making sure they got down as low as possible. The second problem was Tottenham don't have an issue with wages. Newcastle did have an issue with wages. Now, that's not to do with Newcastle United's structure. It's just a little bit harder to convince somebody who doesn't necessarily see you as your first choice. And with that come wage demands beyond what you're already on. Bear in mind, he's already on around 110, 120k at Leicester. Their wage bill, by the way, for a team who's just got relegated is incredible. I think they're about 7th top in the Premier League. You're looking at players like Jamie Vardy, who you'd think, he'll score a few goals to get them back up. He's on 140 grand, man. It's crazy stuff. So they're going to have to shift a few. Definitely going to have to shift a few. Szoboszlai. So I don't know if I actually reported that last week or didn't, but there was talks reconvened last week with Leipzig. The issue that Leipzig are going into the Champions League themselves and have ambitions to win the Bundesliga themselves. And they won't want to be rinsed of every single one of their top players. They've already lost Nkunku this summer to Chelsea, potentially Gvardiol to Manchester City, which is one that's been on the cards for a while. So I think negotiating down that fee on Szoboszlai could prove quite problematic. But he is a player that they really like and they are monitoring. So I think we'll probably just have to wait and see how the summer plays out a little bit on that one. I would see them as slightly different players as well. I actually think there's a higher ceiling on Szoboszlai, and I've said that on here since, that he was a player I really wanted to see the club go for. But I think we'll just have to wait and see on that one. I'm still not 100% sure exactly what budget will be left beyond this Tonali deal, which we've not actually had any indication on when it'll be signed off and sealed. So it sounds like, again, from reports such as people like Luke Edwards, who've been excellent throughout every transfer window. I know he's a Marmite figure with a lot of Newcastle United fans, but his contacts on here are second to none. So I would always listen to the type of things that he writes and says. And he's talked a lot on Twitter, I think, this week about the fee being less than what people suggest. So I do think there's a bit of clever accounting going on with Milan to appease the fans. I don't believe it's 80 million euros. I think it'll be less. It could be somewhere up there with add-ons, some of which will be achievable, some less so. But yeah, I think there might be a little sussing out of where they're at in terms of finances. But I didn't see them. I've said this. I might have said this on here as well with regards to Tierney. I just didn't see them going out and spend £30 million on a fullback this summer, which is where Tierney becomes problematic. And it would also put Livramento in that category if Southampton want big money for him.
A lot of people asking, can he play a left back? Blue Rhythm Boy says, can he play a left back? I've seen some saying he'd start at left back if he was signed.
No, I don't think he is a left. He's not a left back at all. No, he's a right-sided. I think he might have played there on occasions for the Chelsea youth team, but he's a right back by trade. If anything, could be turned into a little bit more forward thinking as well, maybe a wing back as well. But he's an up and down right-footed, very right-footed player. Good pace. He's a really good footballer. I don't see him playing as left back. Being brutally honest, if you were to shuffle fullbacks around, and you wouldn't really change Trippier, but of the right backs, he's the one who can play left back and has consistently at the highest level for his club sides and for England. Yeah,
it's it's another interesting link to Newcastle. That's for certain. We're going to get plenty of them. Over 152, I think now Barry's got. I think he said there was another 6 or 7 who he's listed the weekend. It's crazy. It really is. Outgoings still interests a lot of people. BT asking, is there any news on Carl Darlow? We saw links over the weekend. A tug of war, I think, was the expression used by a couple of newspapers about Darlow interest in a couple of teams. But BT's also asking any updates on Hendrick, Hayden, Manquillo, Jamal Lewis. And he also asks about Karius. He says his contract expires this Friday. Is there any news on what's happening with him?
Of the list that was mentioned there, they'll all go. They want to keep Karius. Again, I think the same guy asked the same question last week, but there hasn't really been any update on Karius, unfortunately. They really want him to stay. I'm not really sure what they're going to do with the goalkeeping department at the moment. I wish I could give better answers than that. It's going to be tough. It's going to be. Yeah, I think it's going to be tough to get some of those players out the door. The ones in that list there, Mankios and Lewis's and others. Particularly Jeff Hendrick. I think that's probably going to be a little bit of a tough one to deal with, but it's what people like Dan Ashworth are paid a big bucks for, and he managed to get some sneaky deals away last year, the Isaac Hayden types and things like that, where it's obligations. Of course, it didn't work out because Norwich didn't come straight back up, but I would expect there might be another couple of deals like that in the offing, and if they could somehow get a Ryan Fraser on the wages that he's on, upward of 60-70 grand, then if they can get him out the door in a deal that brings a better footballer into the 25-man squad, then it'll be a masterstroke.
Good evening to Spenny. He says, is there any truth in the transfer gossip on Brazilian Franca coming to Newcastle? Craig Alrington was asking the same. Liam, have you heard anything about us going back in for the young kid Franca from Brazil?
You say going back in, I don't. There was a lot of talk in the Brazilian press about them being in the first place, and very little concrete information from our side of things. So I would treat it with a pinch of salt at the moment. But saying that, without having any names to hand, they are really looking at that. That is a market that they're really looking to exploit. So it'd be no surprise to see some. They've tried for a couple. I know they tried for one of the ones who went to Chelsea. Chelsea have just signed a couple of young, really promising South Americans. They really went for one of those and just couldn't get it. But yeah, I think they'll continue along that path, and I think they'll be looking all over the planet for these players.
Yeah, I did see this one, Sean. He's pushed this onto our timeline. Newcastle United have sent an official offer of 60 million to RB Leipzig for Dominic Szoboszlai in a package of 50 million plus 10 million in add-ons. Expect Leipzig to accept the bid. Now, that came from a Twitter account. If you bear with us for 2 seconds, I'll tell you exactly which one. It came from NUFC Talk at Newcastle_FC. I've got to be perfectly honest, never heard of them, don't know who they are, not sure where this story's come from. I'm sure it certainly looks as if they've copy and pasted it from another side, another account. But look, let's just wait and see until somebody more reliable, I guess, puts that up there. Then we'll take anything like that with a pinch of salt.
I mean, we'll definitely get it checked out.
Definitely worth checking out. Yeah,
I'd be interested to know where that's come from. I'm just having a little scroll myself.
It's too well written for a Twitter account to do that. It's definitely a copy and paste job, but where they've got it from, I'm not sure. While we're talking, I'll download it and send you. You can have a look anyway. Are we still chasing Tierney from Arsenal? Says Tom Dixon.
Chasing, no, I wouldn't say actively chasing at the moment, but he is a player that was identified as somebody who could fill that left back position and give them good strength and depth. But I'm not sure if they're chasing him at the moment. Yeah,
I mean, again, it's a one that's in and around the rumor mill, isn't it? You just don't know whether there's been any truth in it or not, and that's a good thing. As we've said on this show before, Newcastle constantly play the cards close to the chest. Question from Craig Lee. He said, is there any truth in the rumour that Chiesa's little brother is at Newcastle University?
I've no idea. No idea at all.
Yeah, that's one of those stories and rumours that's flying around. Nearly as good as I've seen him in the local, the local chip shop. But that is one of those ones that's flying around. John Askew takes us on a different journey. He says, evening everyone. Liam, what's your views on the surprising news that the club seem keen to expand capacity on the east side of the ground, bearing in mind those pesky listed buildings? Seen some interesting stuff on this.
Scruffy listed buildings, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's been there for years. It's been there for years. As a result, it's listed. But I mean, some of the stuff that I've seen put out by some of the YouTubers, it can only be described as speculation, and that's being polite. But there's nothing concrete. They're gonna have a review of that area to see what is possible. You know, and I think I've told you and I've told the viewers many times on here that when I was when I was working at the club as the fans liaison officer 23 years ago, David Stonehouse at the time, who was chief executive, showed me the plans for potentially building on the East Stand, and that involved incorporating the front fascia, which is listed of those buildings, into a new stand. Now, some of the stuff that's been put out over the weekend by some YouTube channels is suggested that we would build over the top of the buildings, incorporating them into the stand. You know, potentially making them like some kind of corporate areas, a museum. I mean, you know, people's imaginations have gone wild this weekend. You know, I know we've got money, and I know our owners have got money. You know, why on earth would a club that's essentially boxing it clever, with their finances in doing things in a very sensible way, why would they suddenly go and do something as crazy as that? I generally think, this is my opinion, I generally think they'll review things. They'll see that it's going to cost too much, and then they'll come back to the fans and say, look, it's going to cost this to do this. I think we should get a new stadium. And, you know, would you be up for us at least looking at potential areas to develop a new stadium? I think that's what they'll do. That's my opinion. That's not based on anything I've heard, not speaking to anybody. But that was always the problem. The East Stand development would cost as much as a new stadium being built. That was 23 years ago. I don't think anything will have changed other than the cost to do it. And why, you know, other than St. James's Park is your spiritual home, it's where we've always played, etc., etc. Why would they stay there if they felt that building somewhere else in the city would be massively, would make a massive difference? It's interesting. It's a massive interest, and I think that's maybe why they've picked the East Stand as the side of the ground to develop on. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that, Liam? It's a great story.
It is a great story. Really good find. I think it was a Martin Hardy one from the Times, wasn't it, with the glass?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
really good story. That one for me, I don't get where people are doubling up on the idea that they're going to then build over the top of the listed buildings, because the idea of having a glass structure would mean you wouldn't need to do that. So I don't get where people are getting that connection from. I've not done a lot of reading into what people are saying. There could be reasoning behind what they're saying, but to me, it would negate the need to do that. Fantastic. I think a ground of 62,000 would be befitting of this football club, really, and the need for tickets and the want for tickets. I think I've always said on here that I think an expansion will always incorporate more high-end, high-ticket seats. Don't think it's all going to be for the low-cost season ticket type things. I think there will be a bit of money making from that perspective. I know a lot of people have been upset that I've spoken to with regards to even the pricing of the Champions League levels and the way they've done that like season. I think a lot of people think that's probably slightly overpriced for what it is, given that we don't live in an area that is of the most affluent in the UK. I think it is an expensive one. I think they will have to be careful in that regard when they price tickets after any expansion as well, unless their idea is to purely make as much money as possible from, like I say, the high-end tickets, which they probably will do a bit of. But it'd be nice to see the people who have been waiting around for a little while now to get back in or get in for the first time would get the opportunity to do that a little bit more. But yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think that the stadium needs expanding. I'm maybe not tended to agree with you, Steve. I think you've got to make an amazing point in the fact that it's probably going to cost a lot more to develop the ground to the level that they want, because it has been so neglected and is so penned in that it would probably be more beneficial to just go and build something purpose-built. But we've had Mehrdad Quddusi, that's all I'll go back to, is him saying, "We'll not leave." I remember him saying that. So I'm paraphrasing. But I think they want is to remain there, and I think they'll do their best. I do think that the club are an honest bunch, and I think they'll do their best to try and stay and keep everybody going up that cathedral on the hill.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather stay. I've got to be perfectly honest. A lot of people are the same, but then there's some people in the chat saying, "Yeah, I'd like to move if it means that we're going to progress and whatever." I mean, it'll come down to the supporters. They will get a choice certainly, and the club won't just go and bulldoze St James's and move on without at least running it past the supporters. It would be the biggest decision of the ownership to do that. Benny says rather spend money and stay at St James's Park. The Etihad site is just a grey synthetic that looks out of place. Some things are sacred. Gary says the owner of the building said publicly he's prepared to sell them to the club. He is Saudi, I believe, as well, Gary, I think now. John says the council are the biggest offenders. Previously upgraded buildings in Newcastle, in my opinion. Craig says Eddie on Tyneside Live suggested buying the houses on Lees's Terrace and turning it into a boutique hotel and turn the area in between a bar cafe area. There's also another comment from, it was John, saying, as someone who has worked on grade 1 and grade 2 properties for English heritage, there is no such thing as untouchable buildings. Dave just says that East Stand needs knocking down and a new one putting up. Sean says, I go to the Aviva Stadium in Dublin on the regular. Glass is a great way to expand as it lets sunlight through. This is definitely possible to do without knocking down the listed buildings, which again is something that's talked about. And Monkman, I've seen you comment there as well. He says, Steve, I hope you're good. Tonali is a quality signing. You're moving quickly with transfers. United are in a mess. Yeah, I did see the rather pathetic set of supporters outside a shop. It gave me shudders down my spine, that Monkman. I've got to be honest. It took me back to seeing Newcastle fans standing outside Sports Direct and campaigning against Mike Ashley. Yeah, it's not looking good for you lot at the moment, mate. It's got to be said, but things can change. You never know. Jimmy says, I mean, if it meant 80,000 seater stadium, I'd be willing to move. It'd allow the potential for fans like myself who haven't managed to go to a game in years a chance to go. Oh, Gary says the guy who owns the building's an Indian. Thanks. He says, and he is a Toon supporter, which makes things a little bit easier, I guess. Lees's Park next to the stadium. Not in my backyard. That's what we had. All of those people campaigned against that. David Cook says, can't see why we would spend money on a feasibility study in architects just to say we can't do anything and we need to move. And it will take 2 to 3 years, somebody said in the chat as well, to do that. Gary says he wants a season ticket as part of the deal. Well, he's driving a hard bargain there, isn't he? That's all he wants, get the deal done. Okay, let's move on. Benny says Lewis and Hayden have contracts until 2026, probably loan deals somewhere else, hoping they demonstrate some value, then plan to sell next summer. Hendrick has 1 more year. Fraser's got 2 more years, just giving us a little bit of an update on those players that we mentioned earlier. Any news on Chowdhury, says Terry Armstrong?
I think he's going to form. Is he not going to form part of Leicester's midfield next season? I don't even know where the lad is, to be honest.
God, nobody does. He's in our imaginations, though. We'll never forget that, I guess. Blue Rhythm Boy says, not Newcastle related, but what's Liam's thoughts on the rumours that Kane fancies a move to Bayern and has agreed personal terms? Yeah, this is broken today. This has been a weird story, hasn't it? Because Harry Kane, of course, a really good season in a very poor season for his team. But a good personal one, 30 goals, getting closer to Shearer's record. We hear a rumour this morning that Bayern Munich are interested in a bid. Spurs quickly come out and say, we've never had any communication with them. Nobody's bid for Harry Kane. We then have another statement from Spurs today saying that it doesn't matter who bids for Harry Kane, he's not for sale. So, clearly, Levy's not very happy, is he, about this? And he's going to lose him for nothing at the end of next season because he's in the final year of his contract. But yeah, I
hope he does.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
I hope, because he's been like. I forget if I can swear on here, Steve.
Well, you can, mate. But I would always advise you not to because of your elevated position at the Shields Gazette.
Right. He's been treated like rubbish. He's been treated like rubbish for so long. He's wanted out of that club for years, and he's been hemmed in. I mean, he signed the contract. He did sign the contract. But the lad wants to leave this summer. There's no doubt about it. He wants to leave. And the service that he's put into that football club, they should be dealing with this much better. there should have been conversations before now where it's been like, look, I've had enough. Can you help us? Can you facilitate any way of me getting out of this club? Yes. Okay, if somebody comes in with X amount of money, we'll let you go. Not this stance that he's not going at all, no matter what, with Levy hoping that this Postecoglou appointment has some kind of upward lift, and by January they're third top, and he might somehow convince Kane just to see out his career at Tottenham Hotspur. The lad wants to go places. He wants to win trophies. He obviously wants his career to go on a level, and there's no signs that's going to happen at Tottenham. That's Maddison on the mind, that isn't it? At Tottenham, so I think it's going to have to. I think he's probably going to have to sit it out. I hope he leaves for free. I hope he walks away with his head held high and goes and scores loads of goals for another top team, because he's a footballer who's come on incredibly in the last 7 or 8 years and deserves to be at the very top of the game, whether that's at Bayern, whether that's at Man City or wherever, but he definitely deserves to.
Yeah, I mean, look, somebody's saying there that Harry Kane's going to stay. He wants to beat the record. Some people are thinking that he could sign for Manchester United. There's no way that Daniel Levy is going to sell Harry Kane to another Premier League team. Forget it. If that was going to happen, he would have gone to Man City. I still think Kane will be upset that he didn't get the chance to go to Manchester City, because he'd be looking at that treble winning season now thinking that could have been me. I genuinely can't see him moving to anywhere in the Premier League. What's going to have to happen, of course, is the impossible, which is Spurs. As a Spurs fan, he's going to have to put a transfer request in. And that's Levy's all about money. I doubt the relationship's ever been as good between him and Kane since that Man City deal collapsed. It's strange. And Nigel, good evening. We've got Manchester.
Can I just say a little comment on it as well?
Go on, yeah.
I never know why players are so scared about just saying what they feel. Like,
yeah,
I don't think many people could have blamed him if he'd come out at the start of the summer and said, you know what, I'm not speaking to the club, I'm not really bothered. Just come out yourself and do a video or speak to the fans and say, look, I've given everything for this football club. I just want to go and try somewhere else.
He might have to do that. He might have to do that, because ultimately,
people would respect it though. Like I couldn't argue with a fella if it was somebody at Newcastle. You couldn't argue with him. If in a season's time, even if we're doing really well, if Bruno Guimaraes comes out and says, look, I'm 26 years old. I'm at the peak of my powers. I love this football club. I might come back again in the future. I love you as fans. You'd be brilliant to me. But Real Madrid want us. I want to play for Real Madrid. I want to play for the greatest football team the world's ever seen. Greatest football club ever. I don't think many people could sit there and go.
Now, if you get a bit of honesty, Liam, I think you're right, but that very rarely happens, because we live in the world of agents, and we live in the world of egos, and unfortunately, players don't think like that, and they've all got their mind, they've all got their brains. Very few and far between. You get somebody like a Joey Barton, who's probably not the best example of a professional footballer, for some of his misdemeanors, but he's a straight talker. That era of Alan Smith, Joey Barton, Andy Carroll, Kevin Nolan, Steve Harper at our club, that players committee, we're all very straight. They're all straight talkers. And if you get a dressing room full of them, it's great. And you probably will get that. But yeah, we'll watch that with interest. We'll watch it with interest. And Nigel, I just want to welcome you to the chat. You're a Villa fan, I see that, and you're having a bit of banter with the chaps. He said, you'll need to spend well, Geordies, because Monchi and Emery will be ready for the first game. Can't wait. It's going to be a cracking way to start the season. Looking forward to it. And I have gone on record on a couple of shows this week and said that we write off Aston Villa at our peril, because a lot of people are saying Chelsea are going to come good, Liverpool are going to come good, Spurs will build. Remember, you've got Aston Villa, you've got Brentford, you've got Brighton, 3 other teams which need to be thought of in a similar fashion. Brighton obviously have got players who are going out the door. They've got to sell to survive, but ultimately seem to have a conveyor belt, very much like Southampton did. We all know what happened there, though, eventually, but they have a conveyor belt of young players coming through who seem to be able to replace these players that they sell. Aston Villa, though, are building, and they've got a manager who Newcastle were interested in before they appointed Eddie Howe. It's going to be an interesting season, but don't forget, Nigel, Villa have got European football as well. It's going to affect you guys. Champions League, Europa League, UEFA Nations League, whatever, European nights definitely affect your season. Look at what happened with West Ham. So it'll be interesting, Nigel, but don't be a stranger. Come back, keep giving us your opinions. Always nice to see visiting fans coming onto the channel. We did the adverts at the start of the show. The reason I did it is because I've got a couple of things that I like to plug when Liam's on. First of all, please register for the NUFC newsletter. Scan and sign up for the Newcastle World newsletter here. There is the QR code. If you scan and sign up for it, you get all your latest up-to-date transfer information, Newcastle United information, 365 days of the year throughout the season. You can get it there. And we have also got an event coming up. And here it is. Tickets are now on sale at nufcmatters.com for a princely sum of £5. And it is a wonderful evening with Liam Kennedy, Jordan Cronin, and Dominic Sker at the Tyneside Irish Centre. And that is in Newcastle, the top of Gallagher. It is a pre-season talk in the night before the big kickoff. And come along, meet Liam, Jordan and Dominic and hear what their predictions are for the forthcoming season. And we're going to do a little bit of fundraising on the night for the food bank. So tickets are £5, available now from nufcmatters.com. And that is brought to you by Newcastle World and the Shields Gazette. To get your tickets now, they will sell quickly. Okay, back to your questions. Got quite a few coming in. And Kev, good evening. He says, does Liam think the club will come up with a surprise signing that no one has heard of? I still think we need a left-footed winger or forward.
Yeah, I do think. Yeah, I think there will be players that will pop up during the summer which aren't being talked about at the moment. I think that's inevitable. I also agree we do need a forward. My thinking on this summer is, if they can, look, you can't fix everything immediately. Like I've said on this show previously, they're probably about 2 windows ahead of where they believe they would be. And that's probably 4 quality additions behind where you thought you would be able to be. Nice comment, by the way.
Classic.
I like it. That wasn't the look I was going for, but I'll take it. So like the Ron Jeremy, like you say, he got cancelled, didn't he? Right. I think they're probably about four players off where they would be given like sort of next 2 more windows next summer. So I think they're probably looking to get 2 real bits of quality in the summer. If they can do that, then there might be certain positions which you wouldn't ideally say if you've got a budget of X. Say you've got a budget. Say it is the 100 million. You might look at the 100 million saying, right, we want a left back, we want a centre half, we want 2 midfielders, and we want a forward. So that's £20 million a man. Now you might go out and sign 5 players at £20 million. Chances are it's probably a bigger risk that things aren't going to go well. You might end up with 5 players who you want to replace in 12 months' time anyway. This way they're going about it is, if it's 100 million, you might spend 40 on one, 40 on another. And, and then fiddle around with the rest and say, look, there's certain positions we're probably just going to have to leave and deal with in January or deal with next summer. So I think that's kind of the thing that I would get my head into if I was a fan out there now thinking about, but we need a left back, I'm going to need a right midfielder, I'm going to need a centre half, I'm going to need a right back, I'm going to need a goalkeeper. And I'll just probably think like, they're probably going to end up hanging on to players you didn't expect to and wouldn't have a massive future at the football club beyond next season. They're probably going to have to hang on to them because they can't go out and sign of the level of player that they want to recruit. So they can't go out and spend 250 million on 5 £50 million players. And nor are they going to go down the route of spending 20 million on 5 in the 100 million budget. So I think probably patience, as we always say on here, is probably needed. And I actually think that the theory behind it, go and sign 2 quality additions, like real bits of quality, and maybe fiddle around for a few bits and bobs if you can get it. 2 quality additions really to our starting 11 really lifts that team. It really lifts it. And I think one player that a lot of people are forgetting about, and I'm hoping for a big season from, is Anthony Gordon. I know you're a big fan as well. Doing well for the 21s in the Euros this summer. And it's playing in a slightly different, more advanced position. I thought he was excellent on the last day at Chelsea, playing in the Sean Longstaff 8 role. with a bit of quality, got on the end of things, scored a goal. So I wouldn't rule him out having a big say on things throughout the course of the season next year.
Yeah, a little bit of confusion, and I've just realised the flyer. Yes, John says, is the question in the evening on the 11th of July or August? It's August, mate. Yeah, we'll get the flyer altered. I've noticed it's the 7th.
Oh, no. I had one job, Steve.
You had one job. Yeah, it wasn't me. It wasn't John either. So, yeah, we'll get that altered, but it is August. Yeah, it's the night before the season kicks off. So there we'll go. We'll get that changed. But the tickets are up on the website. John's posted the link, I think, in the chat. So please get your tickets ASAP. Benny says, job seems to be build a squad awash with player assets rather than player liabilities, profile of players being targeted. Canny Barnett says, Gav, we do have the options of loans with an agreement to buy. Les says 100% Gary Wright, light and costs compared to new build. Time will tell, but great that they're talking about it. Yeah, good, John. Yeah, get your tickets when you can, mate. If we get the Saints right back, he won't take up a squad place, will he, as he's just 20? Or did I just make that up, says Stephen? Yeah, it's a good point, that.
Depends. Yeah, it depends on his exact age. But if he's 20, then I'd imagine he wouldn't take up a place, which is one of the key things they've been doing, is signing those type of players who don't necessarily jump in the 25. Of course, one thing that people need to think about now is if Ashby stays and if obviously Anthony Gordon's expected to stay. I'm pretty sure both of those jump into a 25 as of now. So there will have to be some slight adjustments to the 25 man anyway.
Lewis Hall says PDK.
I'm not huge on him, but maybe I'm just judging him too much off that final day performance. I wasn't impressed at all. I remember saying that to Dominic and Jordan on the night, on the afternoon, and I'm sure they'd said, but he was excellent at St James's Park, or they'd seen him in a game previously where he was really good. And I don't know. I'm yet to be convinced. I don't know anything about the deal either.
Yeah, okay. Steve says, Gordon playing as a striker for England gives us food for thought in terms of playing in that position for us. Yeah, he scored against Israel under 21s. I mean, it's not Premier League class, let's face it, Liam. But yeah, he's played up front. He played a number 10 role for Everton, of course. He can play across the front. I guess it gives us an option, doesn't it? But I don't think that's what Eddie Howe is looking at Anthony Gordon as. I've got to be perfectly honest. No,
but it's the versatility again, isn't it? Knowing he can play a number of positions is beneficial to squad building, really, isn't it? Knowing he can play in midfield, up front, out wide. I think we'll probably find over the next few years he'll make home somewhere. But he's got all the raw assets to be a really, really good player. He's got good size, good pace. Needs to add a little bit more end product, but he's got a really good skill set, and you can see why people look at him and say we can improve him.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is with Anthony Gordon, he needed to beef up. He's done that as well. He's put a bit beef on, and he needed, by his own admission, to get fit. And I think we'll see a completely different player. He'll be there or thereabouts. We need him to have a good pre-season. He's going to give Eddie Howe a headache. That is for certain. Gav says Baz Dost. There's another name. Him and Chowdhury weren't there? They were up there with on Ashley's list. From what I've seen of Szoboszlai, he is totally world class. I think a lot of people have been very interested in him. Steve says Derry Sharant. Is that right? Has apparently got a price tag of 1.5 million. The Hertha Berlin striker. The link was reported in the Telegraph last week, and that is a question from Steve. Is there any truth in that one? Do you think?
It's been written. There'll be truth in it somewhere. But again, it's one of those under the radar youth signings that they're looking to do. So it's the level above. It's not really a first team signing. In truth, it's one of the next level below, which they're obviously trying to do a little bit of with a totally separate budget that doesn't count towards certain financial parameters. Then it's probably something they'll look to do, something like that. I think they'll probably sign a few like that.
Yeah, I'm definitely not that old JCP, although I would have loved to have been in a film like Papillon. I've got to be perfectly honest. It's an absolute classic. Could Kraft head out on loan, and would you keep Javier Manquillo as cover, Liam? I mean, I guess it depends on how well Kraft recovers from that injury.
I would keep Kraft and I would get rid of Manquillo, personally. I would probably not really look to keep either, but I think if you had to have one stay, I think I would rather keep Kraft than Manquillo. I get the versatility thing with Manquillo, but I think it's time to go.
Joe Willock man to watch next season, says Mark. Yeah, he doesn't want to become the forgetting man. And we've got to remember he played a big part last season. He was one of Newcastle United's unsung heroes, but we're certainly going to have some midfield conundrums. I mean, Sean Longstaff, he was fantastic last season, but Tonali comes in. It gives you lots of questions, doesn't it? It really does on who starts, and of course,
I watched the games he played. I think it was a difficult one. Like, I think Newcastle United fans watching him with everything going through on that day, and he was basically playing that night. He was going to have to have a stinker for anybody to say that he didn't play well. I think everybody wanted to be impressed by him. He was actually quite quiet, and I think people are raving about him on Twitter. And I'd watched the game thinking I can see positives about his game, but he was quiet on the night. Better in the last game. Looks exactly like Sean Longstaff, being brutally honest. Looks like Sean Longstaff with a bit more quality in the final third. He's strong, quick, energetic, box to box. He's not the 6, I don't believe, that people keep talking about. The 2 games I've just watched him, he doesn't look anything like that. He looks a little bit more than that, to be honest.
Yeah, Sean Longstaff on juice. I think that's probably the best way to describe him. Steve says, how many more signings realistically, Liam and Steve? I still think Newcastle will get another couple of big names in. I mean, we've signed a couple of players already. One for the development, one for the first team. I think we'll sign at least another two for the first team. I personally think we'll get 3 decent signings in this window.
I was going to say 3 as well, Steve. I think it'll be 3. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we'll get one more. I think they'll go one more big one, and I think they'll scramble about a bit for the other 2.
Yeah. Agree. If Willock can add goals, he'll be fantastic, says Kev. Benny says, I think our lads, Willock and Longstaff, will understand that next season will be a squad game in and out, unlike last season when the team almost picked itself because of lack of depth. And like Bruno, forced to play a deeper role for the lack of a true 6, says Senshi.
I think that's his position,
Yeah.
Everybody wants Bruno. I don't know. I get it, because I think he could affect things much better in more forward positions at times. But that's his position. He's actually just a very good and probably arguably up there as one of the best 6s in the Premier League. He lacks a little bit of, to play the role that Longstaff plays, he actually lacks a little bit of legs. He does lack a little bit of legs. So I think people tend to overlook that because of the quality in the final third. But what you need is somebody you can interchange with, which is what Longstaff gave him incredibly last season, was the ability. Longstaff would drop in, Bruno would go and would suddenly create things, or they would link up really well. If Tonali can come in and do a bit of that, then, and there's always going to be a place. There's always going to be a place for Longstaff on that previous comment. There's always going to be a place for Joe Willock, Joe Willock hasn't been an automatic starter at times this season anyway, because of Sean Longstaff. So, yeah, I think it is a big season for Joe Willock. I'd like to see him improve in certain areas of his game. One of the big areas of his game I'd like to see him improve is off the ball, is making sure he doesn't drift out of games, which can happen quite a lot. But he's a good player. I really rate him.
Do you think he'll start the first day of the season or be eased in?
Wouldn't surprise if he's eased in. It's Eddie Howe's way. He does tend to go with these trusted players. It wouldn't surprise us if it's pretty much the same as Newcastle ended, the strongest Newcastle ended the season, not the last day, of course. Are
you worried about the lack of transfer activity at Newcastle, says Alan? I'm certainly not. It's early days.
Nothing to worry about at all. Nothing.
Yeah. Early days. Gary says, Longstaff, Willock and Murphy were improving with every game, and we were a weaker team without Longstaff. Good point. Dom is a big name, Steve. KK from Napoli is an even bigger name, he says.
Yeah, that's the Georgian winger. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Thanks for answering.
That name up and try and pronounce that one.
Yeah, I know. He was very kind just putting KK. Thanks for answering me questions, Steve. My favourite show, that NUFC Matters does. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
A lot. Roger says, who will get the first purple patch, Gordon, Willock or another?
I've just got a feeling about Gordon,
Mm-hmm.
Got a feeling about Gordon. I think he could have a big impact this season. I've seen more in the last few games that I've watched them than I'd seen in the previous 10.
Yeah.
He's played since January, and that's got to be a real positive sign. He's got good pace. He's got good pace, good size. Technically, he's good. It's just, can they refine that? Can they refine that and get all the raw materials together into a good player? He's got a chance.
Yeah. Do journos enjoy the transfer window as much as fans?
I'm a fan. I love it. I absolutely love it. I really do. And it's quite nice for me. I'm not really on the cold face as much anymore, so I can sit back and relax and go, who are you speaking to? Are you chasing that? You know, I can sort of talk to the lads about it and sort of take a little bit of a backseat. I do get involved from time to time, like.
From the 1st of July, before you see the signing dropping in and before the American tour, says Tim, we have to fight next season. This is a chap from Saudi, I think, or a chap S. I want to see the team crowned with a title, and I want to see Newcastle celebrate with Riyadh as well. I'm sure they will. I'm sure another trip back to Riyadh will be imminent. My favourite day is the day the window closes. Then you know exactly where you're at, says John. Tom says, when will the players be given the numbers on their shirts?
I don't know. I honestly don't know that. I think your best, just from instinct, your best thing would be look back on when it was announced last season, and it'll probably be in and around the same date. It always is. Yeah.
International window doesn't open until July the 1st, as John says. Alan Pardew was on TalkSport earlier. Seems very happy for us. Seems a decent enough bloke. Was hard done by with us, in my opinion. Got to be honest, I've mentioned this before. I didn't campaign to get Pardew out. I thought he was the perfect fit for Mike Ashley. He got his European football, against the grain. He was a perfect fit for Mike Ashley and Derek Lambias at the time. I've met him since. I didn't meet him when he was at Newcastle. I met him after that period. He was very kind, came up, was fully aware of who I was when we met in London at an art gallery of all places. But we had a good chat. I've got it. My admiration for him is definitely there. He's a nice fella, and I often felt that if he was chocolate, he would eat himself. But it just shows you sometimes the way people are portrayed in the media isn't exactly what they're like in real life. So yeah, I did like Alan Pardew, so I'm pleased to hear that. I like to see what Isaac and Wilson can do next season. Everybody would, Tom. Good shout, John Justice Allen. Deadline day, seeing all the mad dash for transfers. I enjoy it. It's nice to know you've got your business done. The beginning is always 99% rubbish, says John. Do you think Gordon will be far more potent and productive than ASM? 100%. I think me and Liam are both in the same boat. We both think that this is a big season for Anthony Gordon.
Yeah, I've got to say, it's not going to take a lot, is it? It's not really going to take.
No, definitely not.
To produce more. I think it's a season for Anthony Gordon where he needs to really establish himself in the team. I think he's going to have a great chance because there's going to be so many games.
Yeah, it's gone quiet on the ASM front. That may well play a part later on in the transfer window. But I did a podcast which goes up on the weekend with Matty from the Magpie channel. We've done a little collaboration together, and we were talking about ASM, and I've got to agree with what he says in that he's made for the Champions League, and I wouldn't be adverse to keeping a hold of ASM for the transfer. As a squad player, of course, if he plays well, he earns his place and he's in. But yeah, I think he'll flourish in Europe. I really do. It is nice having a break from talking about him. Yeah, you're right, Steve. What's your good feeling, Liam? Do you think he'll stay this window, ASM?
I think a lot depends on whether anybody wants to put the money down.
Yeah.
What the club value him at. Back, nobody bit last summer, apart from one club who didn't want to pay anywhere near the fees Newcastle never quoting. Makes us think. I think ASM could depend on whether money comes into other football clubs. If money comes into certain parts of the Premier League, I think you'll see a couple of clubs maybe biting on Alan St. Maximin. But actually, if I had to put my money on it now, it's impossible to say because it's so early, man. It's so early in the summer. But at this moment in time, because there isn't really any tangible interest in him, then yeah, I would say he's probably more likely to stay. And he has got value. He's not a bad player to have if you need to unlock a defence. It only takes 2 injuries, and 1 injury he might even be starting. He might even start the season. Who knows? He's still a really talented footballer, and I think it's dead easy to write that off. Even though I would be open to letting him go.
Arda Gula is another name which has been mentioned, I think, on this show. He says, yeah, he says absolutely brilliant player. What a future he's got in front of him. Jules says, Liam, great to see you back on. Take care, both. Thank you. Will ASM go to mop up Tonali's TS, says David. Rich Oliver, good point as well. He says, what's Man City starting 11? Nobody knows. That's where we're heading. Here he goes. So, yeah, I mean, look, it's you just sit back and enjoy it. I think that's one thing that we've said on Liam's shows. over the course of the last few weeks since he made a return to the platform. Just chill out, man. Enjoy the process, Liam.
Yeah, Rich makes a really good point there, bringing Man City into the equation. Man City, they're the only team in the Premier League that can have 24 starters in a 25-man squad. They're the only, because they win things consistently. Teams who don't win things can't carry those kind of numbers. So when we're talking about a squad game, I think a lot of people are expecting all 9 of Newcastle's substitutes to be guaranteed, should be like fighting to be starters. It isn't going to work like that. You're never going to keep a squad balanced and happy if you're at Newcastle, have players at a certain level that they want. There's always going to have to be a blend in a mix, and I think they're on the right tracks to getting that right. You could do with a little bit more quality, I would say, between now and the end of the summer, but I'm pretty sure they'll get that.
Yeah, John's just posted the link there. I've pinned it to the top for the last couple of minutes. Tickets for the Q&A with myself, Liam, Jordan and Dominic. £5 a ticket at the Irish Centre for the food bank. Get yourself along to that event if you can. Steve says, do the club's press office ever try to hound journos for the club sources? Lee Ryder said this happened to him. I'm not sure where you've seen that, Steve. I'd be interested to see that. Maybe he's said it on a podcast or something. But I can imagine that they could try all they want, Liam, but you're going to protect your source, aren't you? That's one of those. That's one of those things that journalists do, I'm afraid. Yeah,
because otherwise, if you start giving your source away, you're never going to get another story. It's all about trust. It's all about building bonds, and it's about protecting your sources as much as you possibly can. That's a trick of the job, that you've got to make sure there is enough degree of separation sometimes to know for people not to work out exactly where it's come from. And sometimes you'll hear bits of information that I couldn't even see on here, I couldn't write, because it's too close, or you just can't put that out for certain reasons. So, yeah, there's a skill to it. And I think the club would not be doing their job right if a story got out that they didn't want to get out and they didn't start asking questions as to where it came from.
Yeah, Pardew apparently said that he said the media coverage locally at Newcastle is intense and unrivaled. It sounds like he found that tough when speaking on TalkSport earlier. Yeah, because you're under scrutiny. It's not quite a goldfish bowl that Jermaine Jenas described Newcastle as once, but yeah, the press are constantly, they're constantly looking. It was on Lee's YouTube channel. I didn't even know Lee had one. So everyone seems to be migrating over to YouTube now. Craig Hope has done it with aplomb. I'll have to have a look at that and give that a watch. That could be interesting. No problem, Steve. It's been a pleasure. And Gav says, think where we are now and remember Joe Kinnear. It should be Joe effing Kinnear, Gav. Remember those days. That hour's flown over, Liam. Give us a quick plug. What's going on at Newcastle World and the Shields Gazette? Anything else you want to push apart from the newsletter, of course?
No, I kind of get those newsletter numbers up because that's kind of the audience that we want is people that sort of directly interacting with ourselves rather than relying on aggregators elsewhere to deliver your news. So come to us direct. It really is beneficial. But yeah, Newcastle World Shields is a quality project and a couple of bumps in the road this summer, but it will get. I'm pretty sure by the end of the summer we'll be heading up an amazing project.
Great stuff, as always, Liam. Thanks for joining us. I am back tomorrow night at 6:00, and it's the return of Geordie's here. Geordie's there. We haven't had them for a couple of weeks due to me having to do shows at different times. But Geordie's here. Geordie's there tomorrow. I'm trying to get Supermac and Gibbo to do slightly earlier on Thursday, probably around about 4:00 on Thursday. Three Amigos will be 2 hours on Friday, 5 until 7. And Saturday and Sunday, we've got Ross Gregory on Saturday, slightly different this week. Pre-record with Ross. It's a really good show. I enjoyed doing it. Sometimes nice when we don't take questions and we just go off on our own track. And I've got a nice little interview with Matty from the Magpie channel. As I say, a little bit of a collaboration there with Matty. He's a great lad. Ask him a lot about his channel and his views on Newcastle, of course. And Ben Jacobs. Transfer show with Ben Jacobs. So you're getting an extra show this week crammed in at the weekend. So plenty to keep you occupied over the next few days. Thanks to Liam. I'll see you next week, mate. Take care.
Cheers.